Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I have again another video inspired by a tweet. I was on Twitter and I saw one of my followers tweeted that, if you don't have a job, you're stressed out because you have bills to pay, but if you have a job, you're stressed out because of all the work that you have to do. And obviously that is sort of the catch-22 of working, of having a stable job. And one of the big things I've seen lately, and I'm not sure if this is just a social media thing or if this is kind of like a bigger movement, but one thing that I have been seeing on social media a lot is this sort of anti-work movement. And obviously, I know a lot of that is coming from, the very low minimum wage, the fact that people can't live on minimum wage anymore. And just in general, people are not getting paid enough. Even if you have a degree, even if you have like a master's, we're not paying people what they're worth anymore. And so there's this big sort of what I want to call the anti-work movement. And a lot of people are just like, you shouldn't have to work. You shouldn't have to work in order to be seen as worth something. You shouldn't have to work in order to survive. And I have mixed feelings about this. This is a subject that whenever I see somebody tweeting those types of things, it does kind of get under my skin because I'm disabled. And I wish I could work. I wish that I was healthy enough and that my body could handle stress well enough that I could have a full-time job. And yes, maybe even a stressful job. For those of you that are new to my channel, and actually I don't think I've ever really done a video on this, I went to film school. So I have a degree. I have a bachelor's degree in film production. And that was what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a director. And, that was a dream of mine, but I was well aware of the fact that that's probably one of the most stressful industries to work in. One of the most stressful, one of the most competitive. But I was like, I'm ready for it. Like I don't, nothing's going to stop me. And when you're young, you have that mindset. When you're young, you really don't know the reality of life. And as soon as I got into film school, the first thing they tell you is, I remember at orientation, they said, look to the person on your right and look to the person on your left. And only one of those people is going to make it. Of the three of you, only one of those people is going to make it in this industry. So basically saying most of you are not going to be working in this. And I mean, they weren't wrong. But it's because it's such a stressful and competitive field. So when I see these tweets and when I see people who are, there's people that are just basically saying we shouldn't have to work, period. We should be able to live a life and enjoy it. And just how I interpret it is we should just be able to enjoy life and not work and not have responsibilities. And that's just really, it's very unrealistic. And I kind of want to give sort of, I don't want to say the opposing view, but the alternative. A lot of people really think that not working is going to make your life a lot easier. Not having a job is going to be, just great as long as you're bringing in money somehow. Like say in this perfect fantasy, you don't have to work, but you can live in a house, pay bills, and have everything that you want, right? I think that's sort of what they're imagining is like, I still want to have a life full of everything, but just not have to work for it. And yeah, that's just, it's very, very unrealistic. Even looking at it from a point of view of, okay, well, maybe I don't need, a PlayStation. I don't need a car. I don't need all of these things. Just all the basics, just a roof over my head and food and just the basics. People don't realize that it's not what they think it's going to be. And I can speak to that because I have not been able to work for close to a decade. I think it's been about 10 years. And so I want to give the other perspective on this. And obviously, I am a person that is not working in a world of working people. I think things may be different if we lived in a world where nobody had to work. But you would be surprised that even in that, alternate universe, there's always going to be something. And I honestly believe that based on my own experience. So why is it stressful not to work? Obviously, and I've talked about this actually quite recently in some of the recent videos that I've done. I have talked about how the last few months have been incredibly stressful. I had a very stressful holiday season. I typically like the holidays, but the problem was that I was stressing out over upcoming treatments, what my future was gonna look like. I'm still struggling with my health, and I don't know if I'm gonna get better, and I'm looking into alternatives. I can't work. If I could at least work, even if my health wasn't perfect, if I could at least work, I could distract myself a little bit. I could have something else to think about for, 7 or 8 hours out of the day so that I'm not focused solely on my health. And the problem with not having a distraction is that I'm ruminating. I've developed really obsessive thoughts. I become obsessed with certain things. You become very depressed. You become suicidal. You become very anxious. You even start becoming a bit agoraphobic. And that's something that I've kind of noticed lately, that I don't even want to go out. Obviously, we've had a pandemic, and so there's that factor there. But, when you've been sick for so long, you don't know what's going to happen. If I leave the house, am I going to start feeling sick? Am I going to need medication? Am I going to need to go to the bathroom? And so you just stop leaving the house altogether. And when you're in the house, it's like, well, what is there to do in the house? I know for some people, binge watching is like a big thing right now, binge watching Netflix and TV shows. But as some of you may know, I can't watch TV because I have neurological problems. I can watch some YouTube videos, on one of my phones. There's only so much YouTube you can watch. There's only so much Twitter and Instagram you can look at. I've really exhausted everything. And that's why I've started making YouTube videos, because I was, I've done everything else, and what else is there to do? So not having a job is mentally taxing. Having a job is also mentally taxing, especially if you have a difficult boss, or your work is very complicated, or if your work is physical. I know physical labor can be rough because, both of my parents have done physical work, and they don't wish that on any of us. That's why they wanted us to go to school, because they did not want us to work. They didn't want us to be beasts of burden, in their words. But there's another side to that. You have nothing to occupy your time. You have nothing to occupy your mind, and that can drive you crazy. Even if I could watch TV, even if I could binge watch Netflix, I think, that would only take me so far. When you're socially isolated, it's hard. And that's another thing, is that work, especially if you work outside the home with other people, you're socializing. Even if it's not by choice, you're still socializing. You're still forced to be with other people. I'm not a very, very social person. I've never been a very social person. So that kind of thing forced me to be out there with people. And that was the only socializing that I ever did. And believe it or not, I think it is finally taking its toll. So yeah, a lot of that people don't take into consideration. Yeah, you're stressed out. Yeah, you may have the boss from hell, but I don't know. You have to kind of ask yourself, would I rather be living, through hell in my head, or living through hell because of something external? You can develop coping skills, coping mechanisms, things that you can do to cope with crappy coworkers. It also teaches you how to manage different personalities. there's skills to be learned, there's skills to get out of those situations. Whereas being home and isolated, you can't escape your own thoughts, and you can't escape your own pain, your own suffering if you're sick. And so I think those are, I don't know. I sometimes, I've had horrible bosses in the past, and now that I look back, I'm like, I kind of would prefer that. That's the big one, right? That's the big one, is that having your mind somewhere else, not having to constantly think of your mortality or, how am I going to pay my bills, right? Because if you're disabled, you're not really making any money, or you're on a fixed income. So that's the other thing. How are you going to pay your bills? And that was what this person said in their tweet, is like, if I didn't work, I'd be stressed about how I'm going to pay my bills. And that's a huge stressor for a lot of us that can't work. That you have fewer housing options. Some people end up homeless. I'm living with my parents, which isn't ideal, especially if you don't get along with your family. It can get very tough. You can't do things. So even if you're somewhat disabled, like for me, I can still walk, I can still drive, I can technically still go outside of the house, but I don't have the money to do stuff. It's not like I can go and take a vacation. I mean, I have money, but that money is going to be for medical care. That money is going to, I'm investing that money in medical treatments. So I'm not really looking at going out and taking trips, whatever things that I actually could do. I'm not trying to spend my money on that, because it's a precious resource for me. So that's one of the things, it limits what you can do, not just, because you're disabled, but because you don't have the funds to do these things. There are other things though. And so this is one of the things that, kind of one of those hidden aspects that people don't really see. And keep in mind that I am saying this as a woman. I can only imagine what a disabled man, what his perspective would be with this. I can imagine it's going to be a lot harder, but people respect you less. People don't have the same amount of respect for you because you don't work. Even if you have money, even if you have some kind of income, even if you're paying your own bills and you're not relying on other people to pay your bills for you, people respect you less because you don't have a job. People don't want to date you. People will avoid you because you don't have a job. And that's one of the things that I don't think people realize, especially for a woman. Like I said, for a man, I think people automatically put the pieces together. Well, yeah, if a guy doesn't work, he's a loser, and, nobody wants to date him or whatever. It's kind of like, I guess, a stereotype. But that applies to all people. It doesn't just apply to men. It applies to women as well. And I will tell you, several years ago, when I was freshly divorced, I think it was like a year or two after I got divorced, I started going on dating apps. And you'd be surprised the amount of people that are just like, as soon as you tell them that you don't work, or that you're disabled, or that you're sick, they're rude, or they just stop replying to your messages. They don't want to talk to you anymore. They're not interested. That was kind of, for whatever reason, it was very surprising to me. It doesn't matter what you look like either. It doesn't matter if you're very attractive or whatever. People will avoid you like the plague. And even sometimes your friends, because you can't do all the stuff that they can do. I had made a friend off of social media several years ago, and we started going out and doing stuff. Like, she was actually pretty nice in the beginning. She was really accommodating. I told her, I have this medical issue. I have some neurological problems. And she was pretty cool about it for a little while. But she liked to drink. And I had gone back to drinking at that time. And I'm not talking about like alcoholism. I'm talking about just having a few drinks, a couple times a month when we would go out. And I did see that it was starting to affect my health a little bit. And just generally, I didn't, it was just something that I wasn't supposed to be doing. And I was kind of over it. I mean, we were already in our almost mid 30s at the time. And I was just like, I don't want to drink anymore. It's affecting my health. It's affecting everything. Like, so I stopped. And I started to notice, we ended up having a falling out. And I hadn't been drinking that night, and she had. And so it starts to make your relationships more difficult when you don't work, you don't have money, and you're just, you don't want to do the things that other people do, for whatever reason. And they start avoiding you. They don't want to hang out with you anymore. You have nothing to talk about because you don't work and they have a job. So, people avoid you in the dating pool. People avoid you in the friendship pool. She couldn't call me up and just say, hey, let's go out, let's do this, and at that time I actually had less money as well because I don't work. But yes, you are treated as a second class citizen. And that's one of the big conversations that is happening right now, especially in the disability community, is that you're seen as less than human. You're worthless because you don't work. And that's not necessarily true. There are a lot of disabled people that are still contributing to society, and that are doing things that are sort of changing the way that we look at disability. And there's a lot of disabled people that still work. But mentally speaking, and as an individual that doesn't work, this is what I have noticed. These are the things that I have seen in my own experience, is that you're just looked at as, you're not part of society anymore. You're just this other person. You're this thing, this leech, and you're only looking to see who you can benefit off of, or what you can benefit off of. By the way, this is not necessarily true. As a disabled person, many of us get Social Security, so we have our own income. I'm at a point where I am able to pay all of my own bills. I'm financially very comfortable. I'm looking at other medical options because I have the money to do it. And I've never, my parents don't even pay anything. The only thing that they pay is their mortgage, and I live here. Actually, I help them with that. So that's the other thing, is that disabled people can actually benefit other people. And that's one of the things that people don't see, is that we can be beneficial to others. I am beneficial to my parents because they're my designated caregivers, and they get paid to provide care for me. So yes, I am actually contributing to the household, to the mortgage or to the bills or whatever. And that money is helping them out a lot. So we aren't technically leeches. Sometimes people take advantage of us, and that's kind of the flip side of it. But just other people knowing that you don't work, other people knowing that you're unemployed or that you don't have a job, there are a lot of assumptions that come with that. And these are most of the assumptions, that I've seen in my own experience, and that will affect how people talk to you and how people treat you, or whether people want to date you, or whether people even want to associate with you. If you have any other points, let me know why it's been stressful for you not to work. If you had to stop working because of your illness, leave it down in the comments. Let me know how your experience has been, whether it's dating or, going out with friends, or just being isolated at home, especially these last few years. And we've seen this a lot with people who are not disabled that have had to be, quarantining at home. It's taking a toll on them because they're accustomed to not being at home. So imagine that times 10, multiply 2 years, and and imagine what that would do to you for a decade. But anyways, thank you for watching this video. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.